Hi, I'm Lundy Kiger, and I want to welcome you to the first episode of 10, and this episode, being called Darkness Before the Sting, has to do and deals with child sexual abuse. I've had an opportunity to work in public education for 15 years, worked as an officer for a corporation for 27 years, and also the state legislature in Oklahoma. And tonight, I'm going to talk to parents, grandparents, and children if they're old enough, mature enough to handle the content of what we're going to talk about. Tonight, I'm not going to use a script. I'm not going to use a teleprompter. I'm going to speak from my heart. And the reason that I want to speak to parents and grandparents tonight is to bring to your attention and make you aware of an issue that's been around since man, and it's one that affects so many families, but it also affects so many families that aren't even aware: child sexual abuse. Now let me start by saying this right off. I don't consider myself a victim. I never will be a victim. At the end, I'll tell you why I'm not a victim and how I overcame sexual abuse that took place to me when I was 8 years old. I want to start out by saying that it's very important that if you're a parent or a grandparent or a guardian of a child, it's very important that you're proactive in talking to your children, quizzing them, knowing where they're staying, knowing where they're going and who they're with and who they're around, and also the character of the people that they're going to be around or other family members that may be there. Sexual abuse took place in my situation in a small town by a older teenage family friend. And I'm going to get into how it took place, how others that are older can lure a child into such an activity like this. And many times it may be that they understand somewhat what's happening, and most of the time they have no idea what is getting ready to happen. I want to start out by saying that as a child, and you can think about your childhood and also how you grow up, many kids feel somewhat isolated. They feel that maybe they're not accepted as well by their friends or even at home. And that's the case that I was in, and I'll talk more about that in the third or fourth episode of this series. But that had a great deal to do with my mental state at 8 and 9 years old, of not being well accepted at home, being isolated somewhat. And when you're in that situation, you get any kind of attention at all, you're pretty happy about that attention. With me, my parents didn't have a lot of money, but they tried to get off on weekends as much as they possibly could. And a lot of times I would stay with family. Sometimes I'd have to stay with a family friend. And it was always difficult on me when parents would leave because I just didn't want them gone. I didn't want to be separated from them. But I found myself, even while we were at home, separated often from the family, having to go outside, having to do things. And one of the things that took place on a weekend when they were gone, I stayed, as I mentioned, with family friends. And with other kids there, you get acquainted, you get a chance to spend time with each other. But the oldest family friend was a teenager and was looked at in the community as someone who was well thought of as far as some of the ability that he had had a motorcycle, had a real nice car. And I know that when I spent the first night and the first weekend, I can remember that Saturday, I got to sit on the motorcycle. I mean, that was just amazing that I was able to do that. I was able to ride in the car and ride shotgun, and it was incredible to be able to go through town and be seen, and by somebody that is one of the coolest around. And over the course of months, we spent time, and one of the things that happens to our children is when there's somebody that is in that position, they're going to do something to your child, they will work desperately to build the trust of that child. And that's exactly what happened in my case. My trust was built. And then when you get to bedtime, instead of going to another bedroom, oh, we're good friends, he can stay with me. And you talk, you set up, and that's what kids do, and everything seems normal, everything seems just fine. And over a couple of few times that we were together, we started building a relationship of trust, a relationship that was friends, and a relationship that really lifted me up to fill in a lot of the gaps that I felt like I was missing out at home. But there were 3 events that took place, and the last one, the third one, was the worst one. It's the one that I want to go into detail about. And I want to mention, as I did earlier, this is going to be from the heart. This is going to be told to you as I remember it. And it's not an easy thing to talk about, but it's an important thing to talk about, because there's a good chance that this is going on with your children and you're not even aware. I've heard people talk from there that I grew up in that these are what you call family secrets, and family secrets can destroy your child. So the night that we got ready to go to bed, we had become good friends over a period of months. I'd stayed there 4, 5, 6 times, and nothing terrible, drastic had happened like it did on that third night. And as we got ready to go to bed, and after we got through talking, the lights went off, there was discussions about female members of my family, wanting to know about details, intimate details. And I can remember that it was an odd thing to be asked these type of questions, but personal questions about the size of breast, personal questions about what does the body look like. And as the questions were given, I remember there was a question that when you see them, does it do anything to you? And I have no idea what he's talking about. What do you mean? What it does to me? And then he touched me between my legs and he said, "Down there, does it do anything to you at all?" And I didn't answer. He said, "Well, it does to me." And the more question that he asked, the more that he talked about. I could tell that there was a difference in his voice, and I could tell there was a difference in his demeanor, that the trust and the friendship that we had built, and the one that I was so proud of having, I could see that there was a change in the way that he was speaking. And when he said, "It has an impact on me," he said, "Feel this." And he grabbed my hand. And I just couldn't believe what was happening and what was going on. And then he put his hand back on me, and the next thing I know, turns me over, pulls my pajama bottoms down. And the next thing I know, I'm grabbing the mattress and I'm squeezing as hard as I can. And I'm thinking to myself, God, what is going on? What is happening? And I can remember thinking to myself at that moment, I am just a child. I can't tell you how much pain. I can't tell you how terrible that it felt. All the things that were going through my mind was just the pain, the pain, the pain. And then as he got off of me, he turned me over and he grabbed my face and he pulled my face in toward him. And it was terrible. And then he got up. He went to the restroom, and I thought, I am not moving. I am going to lay here, and I am not going to move. So nothing else was said that night. We got up that next morning. He was already up. I took my time. It was still so painful. And I can remember walking in, and his mother had cooked a big breakfast and said, are you ready for something for breakfast to eat? And I said, no, I can't. I don't feel good. I am sick to my stomach. And I laid around in the living room. I stayed close to people. And I said to his mother, I said, I got to go home. I am so sick to my stomach. And she said, oh, that's not a problem. Your parents have just got there. And I'll have him take you home. The one who I trusted, the one who I was so proud to be in the car with. The one who I thought was my friend, now I've got to get in the car, and it was a few miles to get there. And then I saw something that I hadn't seen before out of him. As he pulled up to my house and I was getting out, he yelled at me, and I turned around and he had this cocky look on his face. I hate it, your stomach hurts. Maybe it's something you ate. Well, let me tell you how that made me feel at that moment. How low that made me feel. And now to the parents and grandparents. Let me tell you that if you have a child that's gone through this, and believe me, there's children that have went through much, much worse than I went through. Let me tell you what they're going through and what they feel. They feel dirty. They feel used. They feel beneath. They don't feel good enough. And you have got to look for the signs. You have got to watch your kids. You have got to look at them. And you've got to tell, are they becoming isolated? Are they going off on their own? Are they getting where they don't talk? I know after that took place, my entire life changed. I remember getting heavier. I remember not doing as well in school. But the thing that I remember most and I carried with me for years and years and years was the scar, the mental scar, the physical scar, the emotional scar of what had taken place. And as I grew older, there were another 9 things that took place that we're going to talk about. We'll have a different topic next week. But as I grew older and I had each of those things that took place, I learned that they became something that Satan was able to use against me any time that he got ready. Any time that something good was happening, any time that I learned about God and I wanted to get closer to God, Satan was there to push the button and say, don't forget you're not worthy. Don't forget you're dirty. Don't forget that you're beneath. I became damaged and broken. And if I became damaged and broken, we have many, many kids that are damaged and broken. There's no reason for this to take place. We can't know everything that goes on with our children. But since we've posted this video ad about this show, I've had people that reached out, people that have children that have been hurt, people that have children that have been raped. And I'm talking about children. And they're looking for help and they're looking for a direction to go. But the sad thing about family secrets, there's not a lot of people in the community, even in law enforcement sometimes, that wants to deal with these type secrets. We know that the soul of a human being is worth everything. You cannot put a price on it. With what we're doing tonight to make the parents and grandparents aware of how big a problem this is. And if you're aware of something that has happened to your child, there's just as many that are not aware of something that has happened to their child. There are some adults that will talk about it. And as I said just a moment ago, I'm not a victim. In fact, I have come to accept what has taken place. I have made the decision that I don't want to be damaged and broken any longer. And I don't do this video tonight for vengeance for the one that did that to me, because I've forgiven him. I have forgiven him with all of my heart. And I was so happy for him when he found God and he changed his life in all the things that he ever did. And he followed Jesus. I couldn't forgive if I hadn't learned who Jesus was. I couldn't forgive if I did not look at him and say, Lord, you can help me through this. And my Lord has become my Father. My Lord has become my family. My Lord has become everything that I needed to make the scars heal, to make the pain go away. As I come to a close tonight, I hope that this has been beneficial, because I've been in a position to be able to speak since I was in my early 20s, and this is probably the hardest talk, the hardest discussion that I've ever had. But I have this discussion with you that it may help a child, but also to please my Lord and to do anything possible to keep one child from Satan. Thank you, and we look forward to talking with you again next Monday night at 7 o'clock.